Hello World Wide Web, I'm Dr. Shado, the internet personality with less hair. And, well, you probably didn't need cybernetic enhancements to see this one coming. After all, you can't go all out talking about every single theatrically released RoboCop movie without bringing up the dark and gritty 2014 reboot, RoboCop. Well, it's not like they're the same movie or anything, despite Amazon lumping in reviews of the 2014 reboot with reviews of the original film, because they have the same name, after all, and that does also make the 2014 reboot seem like it's much higher rated than it otherwise would have been, and the original lower, slightly. Not as many people buy the 2014 version. It being a reboot, you'd think you'd know the story already, but quite a lot has been drastically changed this time around. Yes, Alex Murphy still gets really fucked up and ends up being put back together as RoboCop. But the reasoning behind this, the manner in which it's done, and entire characters are completely different this time around. Which we might expect, it being 21 years since the release of the last RoboCop movie. Unless you count the Prime Directives TV series in 2001. Which we won't. So, let's take a look at RoboCop 2014 and play the easiest game of spot the difference in your life. Par for the course, we open to a TV broadcast. Not satirical commercials or standard news reporting, though, but the Novak element starring Pat Novak, played by Samuel L. Jackson. It seems in this universe, robotic police aren't just a new budding technology, it's standard fucking issue all over the place. Except for this one little country over here, the United States of America. Seems unmanned machines programmed with the possibility of taking human life is against a very specifically written law against such things. Don't worry though, he can use his platform to try and persuade people into accepting robots as authorities. Just look at how great the Ed 209s are at bringing peace to the Middle East.
General, you care to comment on this?
Well, Pat, we had Vietnam, we had Iraq, we had Afghanistan. Never again.
Okay, my suspension of disbelief is already broken. We even have a reporter on the scene, Kelly Perkins, played by Mara Grierson, designated as a red asset so she can safely report on the bots performing a peaceful shakedown of this idyllic neighborhood.
You'll notice children in the streets as well. This is everyday life happening in perfect harmony.
They sure as hell look like they're at peace now. One thing that might work against this angle of robots being perfectly safe to perform these kinds of police actions in American streets, though...
Kelly, are you alright?
Oh, don't worry about him, Kelly. He pulled a knife on an Ed 209 unit. Someone of that shining intellect probably wasn't going to be around for very much longer anyway.
Now you see how fundamental these robots are to our foreign policy.
Oh, never mind. Ed 209 blowing little Timmy away isn't going to sway public opinion one way or another. It's just ignore that little detail there. With that in mind, Samuel L. Jackson sets up the plot that does matter. Seems Omnicorp is led by Michael Keaton, who plays the role of Raymond Sellers. They make those robots that make the whole world, safe? Safer? Oh, he makes money on them, but he can't in America so long as Senator Hubert Dreyfus, played by Zach Grainer, has a say in U.S. law. As if we haven't figured it out by now, he points out that he also supports Sellers and wishes to see the Dreyfus Act repealed, because think of the children!
What's more important than the safety of the American people?
Unlimited breadsticks at Olive Garden. Those who would give up unlimited breadsticks for temporary security deserve neither security nor breadsticks. But now it's time for the real star to come in, Alex Murphy, played by Joel Kinnaman. Seems before he even showed up to work this morning, everything went tits up. Thus, he has to explain the situation to his police chief, Karen Dean, played by Marianne Jean-Baptiste. This means we do get to see what happened after the fact, so it's kind of obvious Murphy's going to survive this situation. Seems he and his partner, Lewis, were working undercover. Very undercover by the looks of Lewis here, Jack Lewis, played by Michael Kenneth Williams. Seems their guy had guns he shouldn't have had access to, so they do the logical thing and pull their guns to accuse him of being an undercover cop.
We work for Antoine Val.
Put your fingers on the table.
Hey,
shut up. What'd you say?
Ends up he works for Valen.
Our big crime lord this time around, Valen. It's nothing at fucking all like the big crime lord in the original RoboCop movie. It's the ulterior motives and all that subterfuge and stuff. Yeah, have you heard much about the building of Delta City and problems therein? Yeah, it's because that's not in this movie. Murphy and Man Lewis decide they should probe Vallon themselves, approaching him as prospective customers for his gun-running business. The problem is, before they could catch him in the act and swoop in to arrest him, someone tipped him off that they were police officers, and the ensuing gunfight left them without Vallon and with Lewis in the hospital.
You don't do something like this unless you bring it to me first. Vallon's connected.
Yeah, just not with anyone important. Hell, even the important characters aren't that important. Sellers tries to get Dreyfus to repeal the Dreyfus Act, but he refuses because robots can't feel? Evidently killing children is a-okay as long as you feel bad about it. No bother, that's merely a means for Sellers to figure out a loophole in the law. They can't make robotic law enforcement units to sell in America, but they can make cyborg law enforcement units. That is, with the right know-how. This calls for our resident scientist of peace, medicine, and general good guy, Dr. Dennett Norton, played by Gary Oldman. Got some crossover Batman and Commissioner Gordon vibes going on here.
I think I found a way to put real revenue stream behind your research and save thousands of lives in the process.
Because after all, there's just no market for cybernetically wired prosthetics and fucking Deus Ex technology, is there? Nope, the only way to make any decent amount of money in this economy is by inventing the RoboCop. Problem is, they need someone to cybernetically rebuild, and none of the bedridden paraplegics they have on hand are really jumping out of them right now. Not to worry, that night when Murphy heads home to his loving wife and kid, Clara and David, played by Abby Cornish and John Paul Rutten respectively, he can, continue acting all brooding and depressed and shit. I guess it's not too important to establish he actually has a pleasant life at any point at all before this happens. Though I guess I did technically skip over the part where a couple of cops were conspiring with Vallon to pull off this little assassination attempt, but it's not that important. What is that Omnicorp has a fresh new, horribly mutilated police officer that would be just perfect for the RoboCop program. Except this time they actually let his wife in on it. They need her consent to do anything with what's left of Murphy, and sure, they goad her along, but still, she does agree to it. Thus, in 3 months, he's, drinking, dancing, and, most oddly of all, smiling.
Evermore, you are all I long for, all I worship.
Subject is still dreaming.
Oh, I guess everything's looking up for this guy. I mean, seriously, aside from a maybe smirk when he was trying to kiss his wife awkwardly, when before now has this man ever smiled? However, when they strip away his music, his party, his wife, and most importantly, his beer, Murphy finds himself in the lab with a new body that he has no idea how he got into. Guess that explosion also wasn't particularly memorable. Oh well, he's a cyborg with no limits, no manners, and no fucking idea what's going on, so he runs! And runs! And runs!
Shut him down.
So you had the power to stop him the whole time, but rather than try it when he's choking you, or when he breaks out of his own particular lab room, or starts running through the lab and breaks through other doors in the lab and is still inside the lab, wait until he's in the rice field and there's a good chance he's gonna fucking drown when we do this. As Murphy is far too emotional to handle his new body, Norton figures the best course of action is just show him what's left of his old body.
No.
Holy Christ. Holy Christ.
A pretty nice use of special effects work here. I mean, compared to when he's in the suit and he just looks like an actor wearing a suit, as opposed to the original trilogy where Murphy's face on the robotic head was really well done. Finally understanding the state he's in, Murphy stops trying to run away. Literally, anyway. Now he wants to kill himself. Norton manages to talk him out of it, reminding him of that family thing he has, wife and kid and all that. So, after a Skype call with said wife establishing, yes, they know each other still and are supportive of this direction in Murphy's life, now they can show him the armory.
Modified M2 battle rifle. 50 caliber Beowulf ammunition and 30-round clips. 3-shot burst or full auto.
The fuck? What? Hold on. I know this is the future, and you do say that is modified, but caliber is a measurement of diameter, and there is no fucking way you're gonna fit 30 rounds of 50 Beowulf in that thing. You'd be lucky to fit 10 rounds in that size of a magazine. Not clip. The mall ninja cosplaying as a munitions expert is Rick Maddox, played by Jackie Earle Haley, and it takes us about 2 seconds to figure out he's not on Murphy's side here.
Our machines run perfectly. You ask me, sticking organics into the system is a huge step backwards.
He's not scared of robots like the voting American public in this movie, but rather those icky man parts rubbing on the inside of the robot suits. Guess he's just not much of a people person. They do a VR mission thingamajig to test RoboCop's skills, and base the entire thing on how fast he is. Since their robot has no fear and doesn't waste time with negotiations, naturally it vastly outperforms Murphy on the time trial.
5.6 seconds behind scenario failure. Wouldn't buy that for $1.
Ha! Reference! Because otherwise you'd probably have forgotten by now that you're supposedly watching a RoboCop movie. Because of Murphy's dreadful performance, spending far too long worrying about getting shot or trying to talk criminals into releasing hostages instead of just blowing their brains out, Omnicorp is less than optimistic about his ability to represent the brand. Thus, Norton is tasked with getting Murphy to perform like the robots do by any means necessary. So he just says fuck it and rewires the guy so that the machine can do its work without those pesky human parts getting in the way.
The visor comes down and the software takes over. And the machine does everything. Alex is, he's a passenger, just along for the ride.
Insert AAA game joke here. With RoboCop's newfound powers of aimbot and wallhack, he defeats Maddox's little test no problem. Now he gets to go home and find out, in this new universe, can he balance the duties of being RoboCop as well as being Robo-Dad?
Like a daddy suit needs some special handling. Do you understand?
You're just blown up and been missing from your kid's life for months, but you're not gonna let that get in the way of your relationship. You are here to let him know that no matter what, you're still gonna find any fucking reason to do anything but hang out with his ass. Now, back on the force, Murphy can tell Lewis that they are going to track down that bastard Valen and make him pay for what he's done. Later, first RoboCop has to prepare to be shown to the public as the future of law enforcement in Detroit. Later, first they have to throw a shitload of data into him and hope nothing fucks up.
Your system draws connections automatically. It will link perpetrators to their crimes and give you their exact locations whenever available.
All things considered, shouldn't they already have this running at the station on a desktop, or at least somewhere? Just constantly checking these things, working them against each other, seeing what happens. If this is a technology that exists and you can cram onto a mobile chipset running on Robo-S, I mean, that should be something they have readily available. Minus the cyborg. Especially when you factor in that little issue that Murphy has. He gets emotional. So, since one of those things they did carry over from the original trilogy was Omnicorp giving themselves ridiculous deadlines for no good reason, they remember RoboCop has a speech to give in like 5 minutes. Gotta figure out a solution fast. How about we dull his emotions to the point where seeing his own assassination over and over again from all angles doesn't elicit any emotional response whatsoever? What's the worst that could happen? Besides Murphy's living, breathing family also eliciting no emotional response, I mean.
Thomas King, you're under arrest.
Well, I guess there is also tasing a fleeing old man in front of a huge crowd of people. Human Murphy might have second thoughts about that one. But like the wanton slaughter of those who bring knives to Ed 209 fights, Novak presents this event in the best light possible.
And where was this criminal mastermind hiding? Right in front of the police headquarters.
Anyone gonna question just how fucking stupid that was of him? Oh, the police have this brand new super cyborg to show off. I guess I'll just come by and look at it. I mean, I got nothing better to do. I've done all my criminaling for today. This puts everyone in a bit of a bind. Omnicorp knows Murphy can't emotionally handle all that data floating around in his raid, but the public likes him too much for them to take him off the streets now. Also, keeping him well dulled to his human emotions and decision-making kinda turned him into a crime-fighting superhero zombie, leaving his home life in shambles, but honestly still doing better than it was in the original trilogy, so I don't see why they're complaining. Also, he's no longer interested in tracking down Valen for revenge, but rather getting criminals off the streets as efficiently as possible, using his powers to bust a drug deal, taking place in front of a goddamn security camera. Really didn't need a RoboCop to solve this one. And use the lead to take down the drug kingpin himself. He's just a random guy we never saw before now, and we'll never see again, thanks to the work of RoboCop.
Nothing. No fear, no increase in heart rate, no traces of anger whatsoever.
Congratulations, Doctor.
You have managed to turn a basic, soulless performance into brilliant acting with the powers of plot. But his fumbling around keeping RoboCop together with rubber bands and chewing gum does have Sellers a little concerned, so he brings Maddox back into the movie to keep an eye on the cyborg, like a good bad guy, while he goes to the Novak element to have a little debate with Senator Dreyfus. On the Novak element. Yeah, you already know how this is gonna go.
I want you to ask yourself, why are you holding us back?
Is that your Thank you, Senator, and thank you, Raymond.
Thank you, Pat.
Well, there you have it.
Of course, it doesn't help that we just keep going over the same plot points again and again, for one thing. Such as how Valen is concerned about the cyborg coming after him, but the same two corrupt cops are with him, ensuring the man they've covered their tracks, and nothing bad is going to happen to their little operation. Right on cue, Murphy runs into Mrs. Murphy, and this leads him to realize he's been a bad robo-father to his son, and figures the best way to solve that is by solving his own murder. Thus, using the police database in his head and his own memories, he tracks down the man from the intro story he told the chief in an attempt to find out where Antoine Valen is hiding.
If I tell you where Valen is, you'll kill my wife and kid, man.
Your wife left you in 2019 after filing charges for domestic abuse, and you don't have a kid.
Tonight on Robomori. Determining that was a lie, Murphy eventually gets the goon to squeal, leading to a badass action sequence with RoboCop tearing through Valen's men, justifiably homiciding the fuck out of them! With Valen dead, his old life is almost avenged. Gotta find out where Valen was getting those weapons now. No surprise, it's from the police evidence rooms. Those two bastard corrupt cops have in fact been bastard corrupt cops all along.
How do you think before he gives you up?
Yeah, sure, that looks all taken care of, but in this universe, they're probably just gonna get the $6 Million Man treatment and come back for the sequel. However, these two weren't working alone. As it turns out, the chief of police didn't just get gender swapped in this version. She's still a guy as long as it's a bad guy. She was behind those secret weapons deals with Valen all along, and therefore responsible for the assassination attempt on Officer Alex Murphy.
Confess!
But not to worry, Maddox is there to keep her safe. Because, well, I mean, they don't really work together. I don't even know if they know each other. Bad guys gotta stick together. I mean, it's not like it would have been bad for Murphy to blow her brains out. The TV talks about incorruptible robots in only the best of terms, and Murphy's heroic deeds leaving him in intensive care. Not entirely true, but it's enough to get public opinion to sway in the direction of automated assault authorities. Of course, the fact that Mrs. Murphy is so vocal about how she hasn't seen her husband in weeks does put a damper on the mood. Oh well, they're just gonna kill him anyway. Who needs a RoboCop when you can just sell your robots now that the laws have changed in your favor? Thing is, Norton is still a good guy. Yeah, he rewired RoboCop to strip him of his capacity to decide on his own actions and fucked with his chemicals to remove any and all emotion, but ending his life is just a bit too far for the guy. So he must save the cyborg crime fighter. And in case you're wondering why the bad guys don't just shut him down remotely again, it's because the chip to shut him down was just an easily removed transmitter right on the outside that he could have easily removed himself at any time before now, but just didn't. Hearing the news that Sellers intends to kill him, merely because his death in the line of duty would have been a fantastic selling point, Murphy knows what must be done. The final climactic action sequence of awesomeness! Yeah, the plot up to this point has been sparse, to say the least, and I really don't give a shit about any of the players involved, but you gotta admit, the badass cyborg gymnastic duels with Ed 209s has a certain charm to it. Beats having to deal with them fighting humans who insist on being stupid about it.
Woo! Stings like a bitch, don't it? Aren't you lucky I didn't have my gun set to kill?
I mean, I was just tasked with killing you minutes ago, and I do hate you and want you dead, but if I actually did kill you just now, I mean, where's the movie supposed to go after this happens? I mean, not every story can be Macbeth now, can it? On that note, Lewis lives too! Now it's down to Murphy and Sellers. Just ignore the chief of police plot thread, it really doesn't matter anymore. This is your classic confrontation, made all the more predictable by the fact that it involves things we've already seen before.
Go ahead, cuff me. You can't. You're not programmed that way. If you go against the program, the entire system shuts down. So
Reach me with that hand. Reach me with that hand. Reach me with that hand. You cannot.
Okay, so instead of Omnicorp employees specifically, he's just programmed not to engage red assets. Which just leaves me wondering why the fuck none of the police force were designated as red assets, or why none of the criminals think to maybe make counterfeit red asset things, considering that's what all of the robots are programmed not to engage.
Dead or alive, you're coming with me.
Honestly, Robo, I'm not really interested in your references to the original movie, unless you're gonna bring back the agitated RoboCop dance. Because of his robotic programming, he can't do it. Except, fuck that, he actually can! Because something about emotions messing with the tech, or, yeah, I don't know. Point is, happy ending! Sellers is dead. The Dreyfus Act is law. Again. And Samuel L. Jackson isn't happy about this.
This mother is not serving time in some federal penitentiary. It's a huge, hot, heaping pile of horse.
And that is the real tragedy. I'm pretty sure Samuel L. Jackson can't even walk down the street anymore without someone begging him to scream motherfucker over and over again. Anyway, that was RoboCop 2014. It's dark, it's gritty, it's action-packed. Kinda boring. It's a grim-dark story with grim-dark themes and a grim-dark presentation, and unlike the original series, none of the satire to lighten the mood. However, that's only part of the problem. The story itself also feels a lot simpler this time around. Sure, OCP having their fingers in every pie imaginable can be really confusing and hard to explain, but that doesn't mean it's a better idea to have them have, like, one concern all movie that we just keep going over and over again until the climax brings us some twists that are resolved about as quickly as they arrive. This contrasts very strongly against the original movie's ability to cram tons of plot and details into 90 minutes. Of course, most movies aren't RoboCop, so it's best to judge RoboCop not as RoboCop, but RoboCop. As in, fuck it, you know what I mean. As a movie in and of itself, RoboCop 2014 is okay. The presentation is great, the peppering of action throughout isn't the best paced, but when it happens, it's pretty fucking awesome, and there are a few moments that really shine. Overall, though, RoboCop 2014 can't live outside the shadow of the original. If it wasn't considered a RoboCop movie, it would have already been forgotten. Coming in at 3 handy-dandy terrorists with all kinds of suicidal tendencies, out of 5. I mean, you don't really have to strap C4 to your chest if you're just gonna run over there and catch an Ed 209's missile there anyway, but thank you all for watching. I have been Dr. Shado. And remember, if they ever come for our unlimited breadsticks, we must revolt.
Thank you, Senator.